You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.
Welcome to the Hot Options Report, your premier source for insight into the fast-moving options market. Each day, we'll track down the products that are dominating the options chains and impacting your trading account, from Nvidia to VIX and everything in between. If it's lighting up the options tape, then you'll find it on the Hot Options Report.
All right, everybody, that music means it is time for the final Hot Options Report for another wild trading week out there, coming at you on Friday, October 17th. Hope you're having a good trading week. There were some great opportunities out there this week. Also, some danger zones out there. We visited a few of those on Volatility Views. Yet another reason why you should be listening to the full network wherever you're getting this program. And of course, if you want to join us for the after party for Vol Views, you want to get options oddities, you want to get exclusives, you want to get early access to content, giveaways, fun, live streams, fantasy football, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. Now, if you're listening to this show, chances are that you're pretty serious about options trading. So let me put something on your radar. Public. It's the most cost-effective way to trade options. That's because Public is the only platform that gives you rebates on your options trades. They also have some of the industry's lowest index options fees, whether you're placing single leg or complex multi-leg trades. Every dollar counts. Check out public.com/optionsbrief and discover the most cost-effective way to trade options. Again, the Hot Options Report brought to you by Public. Full disclosures in the podcast description. All right, let's get down to business for Friday, listeners. Was it a hot day in the markets? The answer was most decidedly yes. Seems like most of the major indices moving towards the green for most of the day out there. And we had vol coming back to earth a little bit. VIX cash closing right around 20 3/4 today. Giving up about 4.5 points out there. Did get much higher intraday and threatened, of course, about a 25 handle. You might see some prints say it hit nearly 29 today. That's in the wee hours of the morning. Those prints, not really real, listeners. So pay attention to the VIX quotes you're getting out there and where and when they are coming from. Intraday, a little bit more relevant out there, and that's where we got up to about a 25 today. Before giving up much of that ghost, listeners, VIX responding with some volume today, though. 1.6 million contracts on the tape, over 2x its ADV, which is right around 750,000 contracts. And the hot option out there, about 113,000 of the OCK 26s. Average price for these, about $1.07. Now, interestingly enough, these are opening, even though looks like they could have been a bit of an aggressive overwrite. Maybe somebody hitting the bid on these bad boys. Either way, we'll pay attention to these. They're going the way of the dodo next week as we keep on rolling out to SPY. Was it a hot day in SPY? You know it was, listeners. 10.1 million contracts against an ADV of 9.4 million. Not quite as explosive as yesterday, but we didn't have the intraday whipsaw action either that we saw yesterday. SPY going out today, listeners, up almost 0.5%, actually almost 0.6% out there today, closing right around 664.39. And the hot option out there, 446,000 of these 665 calls. Average price for these, about 72 cents. Once again, if you rode them into the close, maybe not the best trade, but you had opportunities intraday to certainly get those off for a better level. As we keep on rolling out to the S also having a decent day as well, up about 0.5%, closing 66.64, pretty much exactly out there today, putting up 4.25 million contracts. So the SPX actually kind of light out there against its ADV. Its ADV today is about almost 4.5 million. So the S looking kind of light out there today, which is kind of interesting. The hot option in the SPX today, 122,000 of the 6,700s. That is kind of wild. We didn't quite get there intraday in the cash. Got close, right around 66 3/4. So 6,700 looks a wee bit optimistic, especially for $2.02. Unfortunately, another one that if you rode these into the close, probably not the best trade for you out there, listeners. As we keep on rolling out to small caps, was it a hot day? Was it a spicy day in small caps? The answer was yes, putting up 2.17 million contracts today against an ADV of about 1 3/4 million contracts. Small caps giving up about 2/3%, so moving in the other direction to the rest of the market. The hot option out there, 148,000 of the 232 puts expiring in November. These are over 10 handle out of the money puts, listeners, going up for $3.78. So the good news is if you don't mind buying some IWM, you could say sold to you and pocket nearly $4 on those puts, or at the very least, get IWM at a much lower level. Let's keep on rolling out to the Qs, listeners. Was it a hot day in the Nasdaq? The answer was it was decent, not quite blowing the doors off. The ADV is about 4.8 million, putting up about 4.9 million out there today. The Qs gaining about 2/3%, closing a little bit shy of 604, 603.93, listeners. And the hot option out there, 209,000 of the par puts, the 600 puts. Average price for these, about $1.60. Again, if you rode these into the close and you bought them, you maybe regretted that, but of course you had opportunities earlier in the session when the Qs were much lower to certainly get out of these. For better levels, speaking of better levels, is it a better level to break into the top 10 today than we've seen on previous sessions this week? The answer is yes, 620,000 contracts. That's what it costs you to break into the top 10, so that's respectable. That gets us to our old pal Oracle, listeners. Closing today, $291.31 out there, listeners. Oracle giving up the ghost out there today, giving up nearly 7%. This is a trade we've seen play out a few times now. Oracle pops, and then it gives it back. We saw this in the initial blush right after the earnings announcement, where it seemed like everyone and their mother, the stock rallied to nearly $350, and everyone and their mother was piling into the 300 puts. Going out in a couple of days, it seemed like a wild trade. They ended up paying off quite a bit. They ended up closing or getting up to about $8 on those puts, and people were trading them for around $1 or $2. So they were a good trade. Maybe some of that playing out there right now. We'll see. Are folks fading Oracle today? What was the hot option out there today? It was actually upside. It was the calls expiring today, nearly 29,000 of the 295 calls. Average price for these, about $1.20. Now, on the flip side, you had many opportunities to get out of these for a better price than $1.20 today, because the stock was as high as 304 at one point. Interesting stuff out here for the 295s. Unfortunately, once again, same deal if you rode them into the close. Maybe not the best trade as we keep on rolling to good old MicroStrategy, aka the Monster, aka Strategy. Gaining back a little bit. They've been getting shellacked of late, gaining back nearly $6 or about 2% today. Closing a little bit shy of 290 today, 289.87 to be precise. Putting up 703,000 contracts today. And the hot option out there, 38,000 of the 325 calls. Now you might say that's wild, and it is, but these are expiring next week. So you got a little bit more time, listeners. Can MicroStrategy, aka Strategy, move about $36 in the span of a week? It can do that. It has moved that much before. Can it do it again? Average price for these, $1.63, listeners. So they're not giving those away. As we keep on rolling to Palantir. Palantir 178.15, closing pretty close to unched out there today, which is kind of wild for Palantir. Putting up 896,000 contracts today. And the hot option out there, 97,000 of the 180s. Once again, we did get there. Got up to 181.59 earlier in the session. So the average price for these for 62 cents was looking pretty good for a hot minute. And then, of course, it wasn't. Yet another trade where if you rode it into the close, maybe you regret that one. As we keep on rolling to Intel, going out right at the 37 strike, 37.01 to be precise. Gaining about 0.4% today, putting up nearly 1 million contracts, 972,000 contracts. And once again, it was upside expiring today that led the dance. The 38s going up 88,000 times for about a quarter. And once again, we did get there, 38.38. So you had a brief spike in the morning, kind of similar to how a lot of these trades played out yesterday. You had a big spike in the morning, and it was a bit of a head fake. And if you dove in at those levels, you ended up regretting it later in the session, listeners. And looks like that was the case out there in Intel today as well. If you paid about a quarter for these, you had a brief shining moment in the sun, and then Intel came back to earth, and you never really looked back. So unfortunately, not a winner riding them through the close. As we keep on rolling out to Amazon, 213.04, giving up about $1.50 or about 2/3%, putting up 1.1 million contracts today. And the hot option out there, the 215 calls, average price for these about 26 cents, going up 86,000 times. And once again, we kind of had a bit of a head fake in the morning, and that's maybe when these went up because we closed right around 213. Pretty far distance from that 215 strike. So unfortunately, once again, if you bought these and rode them into the close, not the best trade. As we keep on rolling to number 5, AMD, 1.16 million contracts today. AMD closing pretty close to 233, even giving up about 2/3% out there, and nearly $1.50. The hot option out there, 98,000 of the 235 calls expiring today. Average price for these about 86 cents. So they were not giving these away. And once again, we got up to about 235 and about a third. So they were looking okay until they weren't. So once again, listeners, if you bid on the head fake in the first half of the session, you probably regretted it in the second half, listeners. As we keep on rolling out to number 4, it's the fruit company Apple. Coming roaring back to life today, closing 252.29, gaining back nearly $5 or nearly 2%. So a decent day for the fruit company, putting up 1.16 million contracts out there. The hot option out there, 121,000 of the 252 halves. Average price for these, about a quarter. So you know the deal, got to get to 252.75 to break even. If you rode them through the close, they weren't looking great. But we got as high as about 253.38 earlier in the session. So if you put these on early and you were judicious in your exits, you could have lived to fight another day and actually pocketed some money. As we keep on rolling out to number 3, it's our old pal, the Wolf. Not TerraWolf this time, but Wolf Speed, closing exactly $31, giving up about $1.50 or nearly 5%, about 4.5%. So this one's wild, listeners. Once again, putting up nearly 2 million contracts out there. And the hot option in the Wolf, again, this is some weird paper, listeners. So take it with a grain of salt. Over 500,000, 523,000 of the 1/2 puts expiring today. We've seen a lot of these types of synthetics going up out here in the Wolf, listeners. I would take a lot of that with a big grain of salt. But nonetheless, it adds up to a decent amount of paper, nearly 2 million contracts, and the number 3 spot. As we keep on rolling to number 2, it's Nvidia, 183 and about a quarter, putting up 3.05 million contracts, so a decent day for Nvidia. That's about what we expect these days. And the hot option out there in Nvidia, 285,000 of the 185s. Average price for these, about 16 cents, and maybe that's your consolation prize. You didn't really pay much for these if you rode them into the close because they went out a loser. We did get as high as about 184.10, so maybe that's when you decided to roll the bones on these, in which case, unfortunately, they came up snake eyes. As we keep on rolling to the number 1 spot, it's Tesla. Roaring to the number 1 spot, over 3.5 million contracts today, 3.51 million. And once again, it's a strike we've been talking about a lot recently, the 440s. They're looking pretty wild yesterday, and they were the hot option again today. Tesla closing within spitting distance, 439.31, gaining over $10, about 10 2/3 out there. Intraday, we did get to 441.46, which pretty much makes these 440s break even right at that level. 345,000 of the 440s changing hands today for about $1.48. So pretty much break even right at that level. You had a brief shining moment in the sun to get rid of these. And that was pretty much all she wrote, listeners. Once again, if you rode them into the close, not exactly a winner chicken dinner, but they were a heartbreaker. They got close, which makes it all the more painful, listeners. Hopefully your trading week wasn't too painful. If it was, maybe you should be checking out more of our content out there. A lot of great stuff coming at you on the vol side, on the retail active trading side, on the crypto side, on the futures option side, the futures side, education, and a whole bunch more. Make sure you're subscribed to the full network wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Have a great weekend. Stay safe out there. We'll see you back here on Monday, another edition of the Hot Options Report.
Check out public.com/optionsbrief and discover the most cost-effective way to trade options. Paid for by Public Investing. Full disclosures in podcast description.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.